Hi, everyone. Welcome to Growth Talk episode number 14. We're here with Rob, the ENFJ jumper, and also the owner of Subjective Personality, the blog. You can find a link to that in the description, as well as his YouTube channel, where he covers different interviews of different personalities and his own thoughts on personality. Rob, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you, Dave?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm I'm actually happy we have a earlier video this time. Usually because of the time zone, it's at like 10 p.m. or something, and I'm kind of already running out of sleep. So yeah, it's nice to be kind of fresh for an interview finally. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on, especially on a Sunday at, was it 9, 10 in the morning over there?
10.
10. Okay. That's not super bad, I guess. Depends on
Well, I thought you had masculine sensory. What's going on?
Yeah, you thought. Sometimes I don't. Somehow it magically disappears. All right. So so usually the first thing I ask is if we could get kind of an overall, just like a very, in a nutshell, what your type looks like. Like what would you say, do you have like an archetype in mind for what an ENFJ jumper looks like?
An archetype. Not
just a
really.
Whatever. I feel like archetype's a good word for that. But,
no, I have so much trouble just like pulling it all into like one thing. It's like I want to keep all the patterns separated in my mind. So it's like if I was gonna think about my type in particular, I really think like the big discovery for me was the sort of demon TI, especially at the bottom, like understanding what it means to be a decider, because it's, I know they say it's like they're talking about people and stuff all the time, but I don't like see that so much in myself, but I see like this kind of like failure to integrate sort of the FE and the TI sides, where I'm like, I'm just willing to sort of keep them separated and just be like, whatever, I'll just do my own thing and I'll go along the tribe kind of thing. And I see that with the like ISTP styles too. So it's interesting to see like the difference there. But as far as archetype, I don't know, I think of like Xavier from X-Men as like,
I can see that. Yeah, totally. The FE is like, I know you're not.
Yeah. But
I'll delete if I get freaked out.
Yeah, that's not so much FESE though. But yeah, I'm not sure, because there hasn't been like a class that like really resonates with me for the FESE guy, because it's like the one guy's like really into cars and stuff, and he's got like this collection of cars. But yeah, that's, I mean, I really see myself as somebody that's kind of like exploring a lot of different like communities, and like trying to understand like why do people care about this thing. Like I recently got into like reality TV stuff, and it's like what's like going on in these communities that's like really like interesting to people. So that's something I see myself doing a lot. It's like, and I almost like come into these communities as an observer. This OPS thing is kind of it's different there in terms of like I'm actually like engaging, which, hey, self-growth, I guess. Hopefully.
Making a blast, right?
Yeah, trying to actually get like my opinion out there a little bit. Like a lot of it's just kind of like trying to clean up things sometimes, where like there's a lot of disparate information. So I'm trying to like create a website where you can actually see and understand some of these things a little bit better, but also getting my opinion, like trying to dive into myself a little bit as part of that. So yeah.
Something you said earlier that I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about keeping the FI or the FE and the TI separate. Do you feel like you're in either mode, but not both? Like you feel like you're just like an ISTP temporarily, and then
right,
yeah,
it feels like that a lot, because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna like passively kind of go and try and like understand where people are with the stuff, or I'm gonna like really have to like dig deep into myself, so I'm like blocking everything out. It really feels like toggling between those two modes. And I also have like the double masculine sleep side of myself, so it's like really introverted portion. But
it's like you're like the most TI, like a lead FE can be technically with your type, I guess, right?
Right.
Double masculine sleep, and then double activated TI. So it's like you're actually, animals wise, you're using your TI more than your FE, almost like.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of why I was like trying to process my type and created that that app that I shared on the group yesterday, because like calculates to a point thing based on where you're activated and versus saviors and all of that stuff calculated together. So it's like,
Oh, cool.
you can look at Oprah compared to me on there, and it's like she's all in on her two saviors, Fe and Ni, and I'm like all in on Ti somehow. It's like weird, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah. If you want, I can link the app in the description. I don't know if you want it out there or not, but yeah.
I mean, that's linked on my website as well, but.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. Yeah. So if y'all want the app, check it out. It'll be on his website and you can kind of compare. That's actually super useful though. I think right. You can really not only see your type, but you see how it really compares to the other people.
I think that's what's really useful with the dashboards. Like, I know a lot of people are like, what's the point of these dashboards? But when you like put them next to like similar types, so if you're like towards the end of typing someone, you're like trying to decide between two types, it might help to put it in a dashboard, kind of compare and see like, oh, they're going to be double activated on their TI if they're this type. Am I seeing that? So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I feel like you can sort of see with the dashboards. So.
Sure. Yeah, it's like if you're newer in the OP stuff as well, because if people are like, if you just see a type, you don't know what's double activated and what's this and what's that, but you can usually see it and like, oh, I get it. Okay, this is double activated here, and this is why, and yeah, it probably makes things a lot more clear. So I don't know if you looked at this question, but we have a routine on here. Say we, I don't know who's the other person. No, it's just me. For asking about like, what do you think?
What's going on?
Yeah, there's a couple days actually. That's how I managed to get everything done. There's actually 2 clones that I tell what to do, and yeah. What would you say your spirit animal is for your demon TI?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't really like think about it that way, but like I said, with it being sort of deeply introverted part of myself, I've always had this sort of fascination with animals with kind of like defensive. I think of them as like abilities. It's like almost like a little superpower, like a porcupine or a skunk. Like skunk's actually one of my favorite animals, just because they're just like, leave me alone, and I won't do this awful thing to you.
You better leave me alone, or it's going to cost you, right?
Yeah, if you fuck with me. So that's like how I would kind of describe it. It's like if you push me enough, it's like you're gonna get sprayed. Kind of thing.
It's also nice because the skunk doesn't hurt you. He just embarrasses you for like a week, right? Because you gotta smell like crap for a while. So
right.
It's almost like you just launch spaghetti at a person. Like it just embarrasses them. Like doesn't even hurt the person. It's like that's a really nice defensive superpower, right?
Yeah. And now saying that out loud, it sounds like cat energy, which I guess makes sense. But
yeah. All right, so we'll go with the skunk for demon TI. It's like, don't fuck with me, bro. I will spray you. Like I might seem all EJ, but I've got my TI side too. And trust me, you don't want that. Right? Cool. So yeah, well, you probably thought about your childhood a bit with like the questions and stuff. Like, what were you like in childhood, and how does that compare to who you are now? Were you quite different, or what did your childhood look like in general for you?
Yeah, I don't think I was super different. You know, I've always been kind of like more like I would describe myself as more introverted, even as a double extroverted type, which is this weird contradiction type thing. But just kind of trying to keep to myself and doing that sort of observer thing, trying to understand what other people are interested in and trying to understand why for myself, because that's really where I see like that play consume in me. It's like I'm looking outwards and then trying to understand for myself how what people are engaging with like makes sense to me. Like why do people care about this? What's interesting and underlying in this? But I definitely wasn't thinking about it in those terms when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just like engaging in different sort of creative activities, keeping to myself, like playing with toys a lot by myself. My sister is like very opposite to me in those terms. Like she was very extroverted, so I think in my parents' eyes in particular, I was like very introverted in comparison. So I would just like do stuff by myself, whereas my sister would always like drag somebody to like play with her. So like she's probably like masculine DE in that way. Like come be part of this. But yeah, I mean, I was just always trying to sort of see and play with myself sort of stuff. So I don't know where I'm going with this. Can you help me out?
So like, I can relate to that a lot too. For me, I was like, when I was a kid, it was like I flopped between being super introverted and extroverted, but mostly, yeah, I just wanted to play with my toys by myself. And like, I remember making like these really intricate like Legos or like Connects battles where I'd make little starships and I'd do like a whole story with them, but I didn't want the other kids to fuck that up. Like, right, I wanted my own like thing there. Was it kind of like that for you, or what was like behind wanting to kind of be on your own when you were playing with stuff?
I don't know. I guess I was just. I mean, I guess I'm thinking about being at home, kind of just not engaging so much with my family and things. I always kind of felt like I wasn't doing things with them, but I would always have like friends and things, just not very many.
Okay.
So it'd be like I would hang out with this person on the weekend. I would do that a lot, but it's like they would come over and stay for like Friday, Saturday. Like I did a lot of sleepover type stuff. So
yeah, those were the best when we were young, right? Like, oh my god, those are so exciting.
So it's like finding somebody that's like interested in the thing that you're interested in, and like, you know, that's kind of what I'm seeing. We're just sort of trying to find people that are interested in that thing, and rather than like forcing people to be interested in it or trying to convince people to be interested in it. So that's something that like I have this idea, and I don't want to convince my friends that it's cool. It's like I don't share this OPS stuff with my friends really. It's like
same.
Such a deep thing. It's like I don't know how to start and explain it. So it's like that. Maybe my website will help with that in the future, and I can just like piece through it. But people have to be like already interested to really want to get to the depth. So I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want to shove it in somebody's face, and it can look like. I think it can look a bit weird to someone and be like, right, I'm in this personality system. And you know what I think you are? I think you're an ICJ. Do you know what an ICJ is? It means you're all about the sensory and you're organizing. Like that would probably freak me out, I think. Like, what are you in some kind of cult? What is this about? Like we were, just talking about what you did last night and now you're throwing the shit at me.
Yeah, it's this weird fine line because like the simple definitions make it like, wait, what? That sounds stupid. And then you get too complicated and they're like, what? I don't understand what you're talking about.
Oh man, explaining OP is like, it's not easy. Because you have to you can't talk in like terms of functions and stuff. You have to some people care more about what others think than what they think. And some people are only aware of what they think and not what others, you have to almost explain it like I'm five sort of thing. And then if they want to hear more, then you go a bit deeper, right?
Yeah, which I feel like I'm decent at doing sort of naturally. And I'm trying to do that on my website, but my wife still says like I'm using a lot of terminology that's like really hard for just pick up a random article and understand it. So it's like, I don't know. I've been thinking more and more about like how to sort of talk about things I'm learning or extract things I'm learning from the system and present them, but then it doesn't sound like you need the system. So I don't know. Which maybe you don't like, why the fuck do you need it? But
yeah, I think a lot of the stuff it's highlighting is like known problems to humanity, but maybe it's more about like finding, I guess, being able to see what those problems are for you, because apparently it's not the easiest to see what your own problems are.
And I wrote my typology manifesto on my website, which is like talking about how how do you use typology? Like what's the point of all this stuff? Why is it an interesting tool? And it is very much about like, you're naturally not looking at this. Your mind is like addicted to looking at certain types of information. So it's like letting you know that if you're addicted to this type of information, you're neglecting this. So trying to get your mind to like somehow think opposite and see that other part that you're not thinking about because you're so focused on the other part. That's like the big thing to me, and giving you sort of a map to understanding that.
Yeah, totally. Like I try to give like the analogy of like describing what you're doing all the time, describing what your top sort of priority is. It's like it's running all the time, so you don't notice it. And they're like, well, I don't know if that's true. Well, it's like, think about this. Every time you go to work every day, do you remember each individual time you've gone to work, or do they all kind of blend together? You don't even remember probably any days you've gone to work, like the ride there, unless you like had like a red light and it was a big thing or whatever.
Or spilled coffee on
So
myself.
So there's no change or no significance to something you don't remember it. And so something that's you're doing all the time, there's no significance or change to it, and you don't like ever recall it. It's just like if you go into a room and there's a certain type of smell or whatever, eventually you stop smelling the smell if it stays constant, right? Just the same with like the function stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, you've mentioned a couple times about you're really interested in kind of scanning and see what other people are into, what people like, what people value. And then you also mentioned that you're trying to find people with similar interests to you or things that you can connect on. Is that why you're kind of scanning kind of the FE there, to find people that are also kind of have the same interests to you, or is it more out of curiosity, or what do you think's behind that?
Just the natural way I think, I guess. Yeah, it's just
like, is it interesting though? Like, do you feel like if you like find out those things that you like get like a bit of a kick and you're like, oh, they like this, oh, it's really good to know, like, or is it just kind of running in the background all the time? Or
yeah, I guess it's just like constantly seeking, like, where are we connecting, where can we connect on things, what are our like common interests and things that we're what are the things that are exciting us. So that's sort of like the stuff that feeling is really looking at, right? Feeling functions, just trying to see where are people excited, what are the things that people are valuing. So yeah.
How does it feel to be like a lead FE, like male? I wonder if that sort of personality is something that's not necessarily understood so well by like our culture. Like for someone who's like, I guess guys aren't supposed to be feelers, or we're not supposed to be aware of things like that. Do you feel like there was ever any resistance, like when you were growing up or anything like that, for being the way you were and like not being stereotypical for a male, or does that really doesn't have anything to do with each other?
I don't know. I thought about that a little bit. I think for me, it's kind of played out as just being more introverted, like in terms of like I'm not expressing that feeling outward as much. So I think that's a big part of it for me. That like you see some of these like more like bubbly people, and I'm not really like that unless I feel like the situation calls for it, or I feel like people are going to be like okay with me sort of taking that role or whatever. It's so you like don't think about this stuff, but it's like I am like doing like sort of classic chameleon type thing a little bit. It's like, is this what the situation is calling for? Do we need like an energy rise here? So that's where
you're like trying to make sure everyone's comfortable, right? It's kind of the focus.
That's where my play can come out. It's like wake up, everybody.
Okay, that's good to have someone there that can fill whatever void that needs to be like filled. It's a lot of responsibility and it's probably super draining, but it's always nice to have. You can't just have a room full of IPs, then that doesn't work.
It is nice to have, but it's also like the strange thing in terms of like I don't. Like you had a question about natural strengths, and that's like a weird natural strength to sort of fill holes. It's like if you guys have a hole, that's like where I like to be and like fill that void, which is like great, but it's also like this weird nebulous thing. It's not like a specific skill that you can point to exactly, but that is something I think I'm good at. Yeah,
it's like a jack of all trades sort of archetype, I guess, in a way. Like when it comes to just, I can fulfill whatever position that needs to be. Don't worry, I got it. I've been in all of these before. I know what to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of good at unifying groups. Like I've just sort of noticed that looking back and reflecting, like I'm good at building up people sort of around me in a way. It's like sort of like smaller groups, and that's just like I'm good for your team dynamic. It's like,
I can see that totally.
It's like a lot of like jobs look for like more hard skills, and that's like it's not as like a hard skill to, and maybe it is, and maybe I'm just like being hard on myself and devaluing myself, which is another pattern I have. But trying to figure out how to be like really own myself, understanding my type better. like own that this is where my strengths are, and this is something I am good at, even though it feels like this kind of thing that I have to like generate in the moment, and therefore doesn't feel like a hard skill in the same way, you know? So
I wonder if that could be said for most saviors, because if you're doing it sort of naturally, it doesn't feel like it's a skill, because you kind of feels like, well, can other people just do this? This isn't hard. But really, like from like a lead TI's perspective, the FE is like, it's like, wow, how do you do that? Like, how do you just know things like that, or know even how to fill these gaps, or what there is a gap that needs to be filled? I didn't even know there were gaps. Like, you know what I mean? You'd be surprised at how ignorant other people are of like that skill that you have. I feel like, right?
Yeah, and to me, it's like I actually did a video recently that I didn't post yet, but it's like about sort of seeing this information and paying attention to this information that other people aren't necessarily. Like people are like complaining about something, like why don't we go like fix that things? But they're just like seeing these pain points and feeling like I need to do something about this, because I'm just like I keep hearing it and it's like loud in my ears that people are like upset about this thing.
You're attuned to it.
This void is like loud to me.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. And when you're responsible for something, it probably is like, I got to do something about this. Like I don't have a choice. Like someone's got to do it. I got to fill these holes, man. You know, and nobody else is going to fill any damn holes apparently. So
yeah. So I mean, from your perspective, it's like I need to assert like my TI self-truth, right? If something is like off, I need to like share that information to like correct it. Like I see you guys like struggling with like holding that back to not disrupt the vibe and stuff, right?
Yeah.
at least that's what I'm hearing you guys process in interviews. So
totally. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I think it helps that we're not really seeing the other person so much. We're just kind of seeing the logic most of the time. So it's like if something's wrong, we're not like trying to go after the person, where it can get personal in some cases, but like usually it's like not correct. Oh, it's like the noise in your ears for FE is like the noise for us for not correct. You need to share TI. You know what I mean? Like it's because you get like frustrated by things not being logical like to you, and so like you just have to, because the thing is you're checking that all the time in your brain on yourself and the things that you do, and so you can't help but do that externally as well to other people. You know what I mean? Since that program doesn't just work on yourself, it works on things outside of you. If you've overworked it so much, then it's just all the time, everywhere. And a lot of times you don't even know you're doing it. You don't know how this might step on somebody's toes, and it's, you know, yeah, it's one of those things you can't help but share it, you know. And yeah, it's probably the same feeling as you with your FE, where you don't feel like FE is that great of a thing, or like you're doing anything special. That's how it feels like with the TI stuff. It's like, I don't feel like this is special. I feel like I'm just kind of being a jerk and being egotistical by doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that kind of stuff I feel like maybe is a good way to sort of try and see your first function. Because I don't see that as much with SE. Like it doesn't feel like loud to me, that like the SE information. Yeah. Like I feel like I can like ignore it a little bit more. But I don't know if you have the same feeling.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there's definitely like, there's awareness of it, but yeah, it's not like, I'm not like suffering from it. You know what I mean? Except for when there's like certain noises in the apartment and then they keep beeping or they keep whatever, then I get ape shit about that. But other than that, or if somebody eats with their mouth open, yeah, that freaks me out. But that like,
well, I ate before this, so
good. Yeah, if you've been chewing your mouth open, like, yo, can you be nice about this? Why don't we do it later? You're still hungry? You know what? You get something to eat, and we'll do it. You know, try to eat out, right? Like, one thing you mentioned before is like you have a kind of the ability to build up groups, which seems like an automatic thing for you, but like at least from my perspective, it looks like definitely a skill. Did you see yourself kind of doing that as a kid as well?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I would like. I kind of have a pattern of sort of aligning with like one other person at least. I think. Like I'll find like a best friend in some group. Like every class I had like my best friend that I was hanging out with. So, and then we would sort of I guess eventually recruit more people to sort of hang out with us over time or something. So I guess that's kind of how it goes. Yeah. So there's sort of this aspect of me or with maybe FE Savior, where you sort of want like your TI sort of validated. So you sort of want somebody that you can sort of trust to help you do that, make sure you're not like totally off base. It's just like, it's this weird thing where you like feel like you're just going to be like disconnected from everything if you like go too much. So you want somebody that you can like share that with and like feel like you're not walking off the planet of away from the tribe or something. Especially me being a little more introverted, I just like want somebody I can check in with. But I'm getting totally away from the question here. But
oh, that's fine. No worries. It's leading me to other questions, which is always like a good thing. How do you feel about like people sharing their TI with you? Do you feel like sometimes your own TI gets stepped on from that, or do you generally like just to take in whatever TI that you can from people, even if it's like something? Even if they're talking about something that's already in your own TI, that might be a different perspective on it. Like, how is that for you?
I think I generally like listening to people like break things down and see how they're processing them. I don't like take them as threats normally, like unless they're interacting with me directly and being like, what you're thinking is wrong. And that's where I kind of have more of a fear of being misunderstood and stuff. Because it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to explain this well. Like I sort of have that with my wife a little bit in terms of the OPS stuff. It's like, does she think I'm like an idiot for enjoying this and like thinking that it's in some way valid or whatever she thinks? But it's like if I was able to explain this all this thinking out to you, which is difficult for me to do because not only is it complex, I just like. Yeah, I guess there's somewhat of an obligation with the consume to really like give all the information to justify it, rather than be like, this is like the value I'm getting from it. Isn't that good? I don't like think to do that really.
I don't think to either. Yeah. Is it like if you feel like you don't give the whole TI and you get misunderstood, do you feel like you're worried about like you looking bad personally? Like if you don't, if you put something out and it comes off dumb to the other person just because you weren't able to explain it the way you wanted to, are you kind of afraid of that a little bit?
Yeah. I think it's like that aspect of being like wordy with stuff because you like really want to make sure that like it's all justified. Yeah. I feel like I was going to go somewhere else with that, but I lost my train of thought.
Oh, good. I think we both share that. I think even if you're Savior TI, for me, it's just like, if I'm like putting something out and like you're not completely getting it, and I also don't want it to reflect bad on me either. So like I won't let it go. Like, let me explain this again to you so you know. Like you have to let it go, which is super hard. Because you feel like if you don't get your like the TI, your personal stuff, like clearly, then they're going to have a different impression, and I don't want them to have that impression because I'm afraid that impression reflects poorly on me for some reason, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time now I'm sort of able to accept that it's kind of just a misunderstanding. So they're like seeing the same thing, but they're like explaining it differently, and we're just not connecting on like the words. And like the underlying thing is there. Like I'm able to sort of see that is intact at least, and it's like whatever. I can move on from this. I call it like a semantics problem almost, in terms of
like most
arguments
just like semantics, right?
Yeah, that was something I was noticing, especially like once I got into my job. It's just like people are just like talking about the same thing all the time. So maybe that's double observing a little bit, but like seeing that, like, okay, we got like the pattern here. It's like we don't need to keep talking about all these.
Yeah, like why are we going over this again? We solved this like 2 years ago. Like really, the same old information.
Yeah, it's like we get it, right? Like
we all get it, right? Because clearly you guys don't get it because you're still talking about it. It's like, listen, the egg came first, not the fucking chicken. We've been over this I don't know how many times. All right. Like,
I don't know if it's like more double observing or info versus energy or something like that, but maybe it's not a OP thing at all.
Yeah, it could be. I think that's the one thing that like I think we all need to be aware of sometimes. Not everything can be explained by this like damn system, right? And we have to realize like, hey, some people do this because that's how they're raised, that's their culture, or there's some trauma they had in their life. It's not necessarily like type related, like just weird things like, like I know a guy that brushes his teeth just like this with the thing straight up and down, the brush. It's so weird. And he's lead TI. Do TIs do that? Is that a TI thing? Like, no, I don't know. He learned how to brush his teeth weird. What does that have to do with TI?
Yeah.
Like, I hate that so much. It gets so annoying to just like shove everything in the OP box. The box is that big. Don't put that in there, You
have to be really careful with the behaviors mapping to it. Like, this in terms of like you're exchanging information and trying to like process it from someone else, I can see how that's like, okay, you're like over processing this for some weird reason, so maybe that could be related. That's something that seems like it makes more sense than something like how you're holding your pen.
I've heard it like, I didn't want to say the exact analogy, but that was based off of one I heard the other day, but I didn't want to call the person out, so I modified it a bit. But yeah, I've heard something very similar to that, and it was just like, oh my god, it's like it's giving me a headache. Oh, Jesus. So like, did you see kind of the demon TI problems in your little as well? Or do you feel like you were struggling with that then, or what was kind of the main struggles that you had? And if you have any like examples of maybe some things that happened that, or you could probably tie into your functions in some way, or
demon TI,
or even demon NI as well. I guess when you're young, probably had some NI frustrations as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, I feel like the ways I can maybe think of it growing up, I wasn't very good at sports. And I was like trying to do them with my dad was always like really engaged with being like a coach and stuff. So I was like always doing these things, and like I guess I felt like it was good for me to have this sort of experiences, but I felt like I was one of the bad players on the team. But my dad was like really good about helping teach me and train me and stuff. So like he eventually helped me like be a more competent player. So I was able to sort of find my role and fill it, as as we discussed earlier. But yeah, that was definitely something I was like sensitive about. I was like, okay, I'm like bad, and there might be like a temptation from sort of a feeling user or maybe TI or something, but to sort of devalue the thing itself and be like, oh, I'm not into basketball, I'm not into baseball because I'm bad. Like that's sort of a way I see so like the feeling going like, oh, I'm like going to place a value judgment on this thing and be like, oh, it doesn't matter if I'm bad at this. It's problem solved.
It sucks anyway.
Yeah. Which I can kind of see that pattern happening just with various things, but just sort of understanding like the things I am good at. I am sort of able to like, I get that feedback back from people, and it's like, oh, I'm good at this thing. That's something that I can sort of like hang my hat on and say that I'm good. Like I was good at math from an early age. Like demon TI, like that's not a pattern. A lot of TIs are probably just good at math because they're just like enjoying the puzzling out of it.
I'm actually awful at math. That's the one thing. It's like, which is like, you're a programmer, or Dave, you're lead TI, and you're not good at math. It's like, no, the math doesn't have anything to do with TI. It's
I think some of the
thing, right? Like,
yeah, there was like more basic math and stuff that I felt like I could like piece together. That I really enjoyed, like stuff like Sudoku I enjoy as well.
Oh yeah, Sudoku's fun. Yeah, I like it too.
Like more advanced math in college, it was a little tougher, but got through.
So I have a question about that too, because for me, like I got through the math early on. It wasn't my favorite thing, but like college math with like calculus and things like that, I really struggled with that because I never knew like the NI of it, and like meaning like I didn't know what this shit was supposed to do. I didn't know what this meant. I knew that, okay, when the equation looks like this, you do this. I didn't know what that meant, or like it was never explained kind of what the use was for or what this is actually modeling. And so I could never really put the pieces together, and it felt like I was just memorizing stuff, which I was horrible at. Was it a similar situation for you, or like, do you know like why you struggled with that a bit?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it as much. But yeah, it might have been something like that where it's like, yeah, I just kind of like have these formulas and I'm not really getting that underlying pattern as much. So maybe I would have been able to sort of see that a little bit better. I felt like when I did like pre-algebra and stuff, it's like, oh, these patterns like make a lot of sense to me. I can like see like how you're just shifting the crap around and doing the same thing. So it's like, this isn't that hard. But those, it was like a little more abstract, I guess, and complicated. So maybe I wasn't taking the time to really understand it as much, and I needed to.
That makes sense. Yeah, with like the earlier math, like algebra and stuff, like you could always kind of like model that to real world situations, right? Like you could always kind of picture that, and you can kind of intuitively kind of see what's happening, right? Like with that, like we're using, whether we know algebra or not, we're kind of using some similar math that's going in our head for most stuff, right? Like it's kind of like, it's not something where you don't know what this means. You can't, you could easily like model it to the sensory somehow, I feel like, which I guess made it easier for me. Maybe it's like demon intuition. That's where the abstract stuff like was pretty difficult.
Yeah, I remember like sine, cosine stuff and geometry being kind of weird too. Like it's, that kind of stuff was like harder for me to remember, and all just sort of blended in my head. So yeah, that one felt like I had more memorization. So it's trickier.
Yeah, same. I skipped the trigonometry course with all that stuff before I took calculus, just out of arrogance. And there was all this like cosine and sine. I'm like, what does this symbol mean? Like, I don't know. Like, did you not take the trigonometry course? You said it was optional. I didn't take it. And so like I had to just well, I still don't know what any of those things mean now, like or what we use them for. I don't think I knew then either. I just knew, okay, if the thing looks like this, you do this to the thing. What's actually being done? Who knows? But I just need to pass this stupid class so I can move on. I'm not going to use, fucking calculus in my job anyway. This is a waste of time. But just give me the damn degree so I can move on with my life, because I don't. This math is stupid. 1 second, let's close the window. Oh, okay. Light's starting to get my eye there. Okay. So, do you have any tidal wave examples? I'm curious to like, if you'll share. I know this is like probably personal stuff, and you've probably been asked this quite a bit. What does like the TI tidal wave look like? Either in general, or if you have an example, that's great too. Either way, I'm curious to see what that's like.
I don't know. There's like sometimes it feels like kind of stupid things, but it's like I figured out how to do this for myself, and then someone else sees it and like tells me it's like a bad way to do it. I'm like, oh fuck. They're seeing through my shit. I don't know what I'm doing. That kind of stuff is like pretty triggering for me. So that's one way I see it. But a lot of it is just like being afraid to sort of expose myself to that as well.
Yeah.
Which I guess I'm like trying to dodge the tidal wave almost by seeing that could happen. So I'm hiding from it, which is a problem in itself. I mean, I've heard some people kind of like encouraging you to sort of hit those tidal waves and not dodge them, because that's like how you learn and things. So maybe that's something I need to be doing more. But yeah, like balancing that sense of like trying to figure it out for myself, and then like seeing if I'm way off base and allowing myself to be sort of judged in that way, which I guess I'm trying to do a little bit more with like something like a YouTube channel, putting my thoughts out there.
Oh yeah, it's both demons for you, right? It's Blast and it's using TI. And NI, technically, you're doing the whole thing. That's
yeah, I mean it's not easy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, for sure. But so like
I'm trying to do it. I don't know. I don't know why.
It's working out. People are watching it. People are checking it out. I think you're doing a good job. So in these tidal waves, do you get like ragey at all? Like both your demons are masculine. So is there like a Hulk version of Rob that comes out like when you're like TI's been stepped on?
Yeah, I feel like I get like offended, It's
Okay.
like, and then I'm like, what the fuck, man? I thought we were friends or something.
Yeah.
So, or I mean, maybe it's not somebody I thought I was friends with. Well, I'm like, oh, of course you're gonna fucking do this to me, but
shit like that.
And, I mean, I feel like I had these problems with my sister growing up a lot. Like her like nitpicking or like saying like, why are you doing it like this? You should be doing it like this, and that kind of stuff. But
no TI wants to hear that. Wherever it is in the stack, you don't want to hear that.
And like, you just don't understand, so leave me alone. But
yeah, that's the thought, right? Like, you don't understand. I know this looks weird. I know how this looks, but just try. I have a way that I do it for a reason. I don't want to tell you those reasons because that takes time, and I don't care to tell you. But
yeah, and they're not always conscious either. It's just like,
sure, yeah.
I've just been doing it like this. I started doing it like this, and then I built on that, and now I'm doing it strangely. But it all made sense at the time.
Yeah, and I think there's like a lot of creativity in TI because of that. Because you are kind of like, you're not looking at the currently acceptable methods to do whatever it is you're trying to do with your TI, right? You're just like, what do I subjectively think should be done? And then like, you could either look like an idiot or you look like a genius, right? Because it's like, either you do it really bad or you do something that, wow, I would have never thought to do it that way. That's actually better. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. I forgot what the question was.
I forgot to. Yeah, what did I ask you? Oh, the tidal wave stuff. I think you covered it, unless you have something else to add.
I don't know. Thinking maybe I could try and get another example, but I don't know.
Did you have like a turning point in your life where you really realized like, yo, I need to really be a little more, I don't know, be more like forward with myself, or maybe be more in touch? I'm guessing you probably don't have a problem being in touch with your TI, being because of your animal stack. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but maybe like, do you feel like, wow, I really got screwed in this situation because I didn't put my own identity out there? Did you have any like major thing like that you felt like maybe a turning point for you or anything?
Yeah. So with the blast last, it's sort of like I'm trying to build up this sense of self, sort of independent from the tribe, and then like maybe I do that too much and I'm not sharing it. It is kind of like, oh, it's sort of like that IP problem where I'm like working on something and then people are like, why are you doing that? We don't care about that. But that's like, I started with something I thought people cared about, and maybe I like went down like my own rabbit hole kind of thing. So I can still sort of have those sort of problems. I can see them in myself, and not communicating that this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm taking things. So I need to shorten those loops, right? And sort of expose myself to the criticism. And yeah, that's tricky. And
that's what's really interesting about
trying to sell people that I should keep doing this. Like this is something that's worthwhile to do. Is something I find like tricky to convince them, like, this is the value that's going to come from this down the road, right? That's something that I find very elusive. And like, I guess that is what like NIFE Blast is better at doing, sort of seeing like, this is what the value that is going to come from this. So I can feel confident in that. I just like don't. I can sort of see what it could be, maybe, but I just like don't feel confident at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can relate to that as well.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's like, oh, do I have to guess? But what if I'm wrong on the guess? Yeah. I'm probably going to be wrong on the guess. Like, damn it. Yeah, like, I think this is like, your type is a really interesting type because it almost feels like you're like a double agent, right? With the blast, you're almost like very IP-like, and then you have your other side that's the FE, and then you have like, you're down in the basement, like, building a nuclear reactor. It's like two different, there's a Clark Kent and Superman thing going on. I feel like a lot of times with this, it's like a split type in a way. Like, maybe it's that way with a lot of glass lizards, but I feel like that is cool. It sounds cool, but also incredibly frustrating because you feel like how do you integrate those two things together, right? I feel like it must be really difficult.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes to show that like every type really has that, but it's just this one's kind of like strange, especially when you think about what like normal MBTI type patterns look like. Just like not one of the normal patterns that you have like these two sides. So
yeah,
which is why I have that entire article series about glass lizards. Go check it out on my website.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, totally. I think that's good you have an article for it, because I feel like that question gets so asked, like, what the hell is a glass lizard?
Yeah.
For one, people don't know what glass lizards are, so I don't know why we're using that terminology. Like, just the actual animal, nobody knows what that is. And then it's like, then they have to look it up from OP and find the video about it, but there's not necessarily a video. Maybe there's a video, but it's kind of mentioned here and then over there and over there. It's good you're able to bring that together into an article. I think
and then the way you explain it is it's a single activated first function and double activated last function, and it's like what an activated mean.
Yeah, then you have to explain that. Right?
Then you have to explain that, and then you have to explain what animals are. It's like, okay, never mind.
It's like, I just don't. It just means you appear not like you are. There we go. That's fine.
Yeah.
Glass lizard.
I don't know if you saw those articles, but I actually have like what is a glass lizard and how does that connect to what these types are. So,
okay, no, I haven't read that, but yeah, I'll check that out. I think like I think the bit of a void in the information there from like, I mean, I guess you can't like type by like checking, like have like a checkbox for glass lizard, true or false, like, right? But I wonder if there are some like traits that you would see kind of point out that or jump out that are like unique to glass lizards. Was there something in the article about that? I'd be curious to read that if you've noticed kind of a pattern.
I mean, it's like a lot of different glass lizards because it's like a subcategory. So like for mine in particular, I'm a play first EJ, so I'm sort of disconnected from the blast part of my FE. It's like I'm not feeling responsible to share the known information or to like connect that with my NI. So I'm like very like attuned to the values of others that I can see in the moment. So I'm willing to sort of like play in that space. But once we start like predicting or like saying like that's going to stay consistent, I'm like out. No, yeah. I'm not going to like direct people based on like, I'm pretty sure this is going to continue to be the case. Like, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. So like in the moment I can see like, oh, these people are valuing this thing. This is like something that we can align on here in the moment. But I'm just like not comfortable saying that that's going to be true tomorrow and on and on and on very much, unless I like see that happening consistently and can really form that pattern for real. So
yeah, it feels like there's so much like there's so many variables and data involved. It's like, how could you be sure like that this is going to be this way in the future? Like with anything almost, because it's like with any given situation or any sort of pattern, there's potentially millions of variables that are going to you have to account for if you really want to get it perfect, right? So it's like, how can you be so sure? But yeah, some people manage to do it. You know, I don't know, it's some kind of like black magic or something.
Yeah, and it's really just like tying all this stuff together. Like it's just thinking more broadly and like seeing how it's like, oh, like this is something that is persistent like through all conversations I've had in my life. They're just like relating it back to that, where I'm just like focused so much on like what's actually going on now. But I think in particular with glass lizards, it's important to think about because a lot of descriptions in just like regular MBTI socionics community, they don't make these slices between like play and blast, right? It's like FE does things associated with play and does things associated with blast in those descriptions. And so you're not going to see me as someone that's an FE lead type in those systems because I'm not doing the things that an FE lead is supposed to be doing in those systems according to the descriptions or whatever. So I'm not like controlling the vibe in the room. I'm just sort of reacting to it.
Yeah. Like the feeling pulse thing. Yeah. Like you're not trying to shift it. You're trying to like, okay, where can I place myself to where things improve? Like I'm not going to push it, but I can kind of, there's like more of a finesse to it. It sounds like a little bit, right?
Yeah. And that's something that they were like I had my interview with Benjamin after I was typed, and people were like commenting that he's not doing this, and that's like something that's FE, so he can't be FE. And it's like, okay, well in your system I'm not FE then. Like I was typed LII, which is FE. I don't know what that slot's called. The last, like it's an INTP basically in socionics. Okay. So I had FE in that system, but it's like inferior function.
Did you relate to that? I'm guessing MBTI type was probably similar, right? Or were you kind of like, yeah, this doesn't quite fit?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was any TI in OPS before I was typed.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I don't know, like
I actually thought you were too. I was like, he's probably right. Yeah. Just because like there's the Rob on the interview here, but then the Rob in the chat is a different Rob. The Rob in the chat tends to troll you a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like make a lot of jokes and all this stuff. Like it's kind of yeah, I can see. You definitely had the kind of an ENTP archetype vibe, at least in the Discord I felt a bit.
Yeah, I mean I definitely feel like, and that's something I've thought about as well, which I don't know. I'm going to get away from what I was talking about, but that's another sort of thing where it's like when it feels like it's appropriate for my TI to come out, which is like a group like this, where we're like all trying to like break down and understand these things. So it's like we are block banging about this system. That feels like this is a space where I can sort of play with that TI more. It's appropriate, so I can do it. Yeah, and in spaces where I don't feel like that's what's being asked of me, then it doesn't come out. And that's sort of where I need to sort of learn better to, even if people aren't asking for it, I need to present it. That's something I'm processing recently.
Yeah, and it's hard to know that balance. I don't even know that either, actually. When is it appropriate? Other than being asked, we both know that it's okay then. When you're not asked, it's like, I don't even know how to start with that. Like, I don't know. I just say it and then hope that they're okay with it. Or you just kind of like, I guess you just like, it's hard to have it like an NI about when I shouldn't do it. But you do put it out there and you gauge the other person's reaction. If they're receptive to it, then okay, keep going. If they're not, then you just, you stop, right?
Yeah, and that's where it's tricky for deciders, because you like feel like you really failed on one part of it. It's like, oh, I didn't like think this through correctly, and therefore I like screwed it up. I screwed up the vibe. Like that's one of those things that's like really difficult, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
I always think like if I had more time to think this through, I could like think a better way to share this information. But then it passes me by that moment. So
yeah. Do you ever like afterwards you think of, oh, I should have said it like this? Ah, damn it. Yeah. Like, you get into an argument afterwards, you think of like all the stuff you could have said, like, oh, that would have been perfect. Like, oh, what did I think about it? Wait, can I have that argument again with the person and then how do you feel about some questions? We have some questions in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Sweet. So good morning, Jana. Hi, Laura. Let's spread some FE around. Hi, Victoria. Yes, I remember this issue. Do you still talk to him about it, or did you just kind of shut down after the whole typing thing with him? Or is it, he didn't, from what you said, it doesn't sound like he was too into the whole thing, or kind of he was weirded out by it for some reason. Yeah, I don't know if she's still listening, but yeah, maybe in the chat, or you can text me. Oh, here's a question. Okay. How touchy are you as someone with Savior FE? Touchy, like touchy-feely, or?
I was thinking the same thing. I don't think that's what they mean, though. Probably like how sensitive are you?
Okay.
We might have talked about a little bit, but I don't know. I try and be adaptable to other people's ways of sort of presenting things, but it's like things I'm very sensitive about. It's like almost trying to like understand where those things are. I don't always know until it happens. Because like I'll put an article out there and like I'll be like open to criticism about it because it's like I really thought this through. And like I'm like, okay, like this makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense to somebody, I could maybe try and like see how it could be adjusted. But if it's, because I don't know, I guess I've been able to like build up like this is gonna hit for somebody. I guess if it didn't hit for like everyone, I'd be like kind of thrown off. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like really particular things. So
Is this like something is like has to do with things you put like a lot of time into, and kind of spend a lot of time developing that you're more protective over or touchy about, or?
I feel like it's almost less that way.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. For me, it's the opposite, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. That's something that's like really confused me, because it does feel like when I have the ability to put my time into it, I'm more willing to like listen to criticism about things.
Okay.
Or yeah, it's like, oh, you didn't think this through well enough. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I'm still trying to process, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and like the criticism kind of isn't warranted when you haven't put a lot of time into it, right? Too, it's like, yo, I didn't really try with this, so I don't really need criticism on this thing. It's just gonna make me like feel bad, I guess, right? Like, just criticize me on something I prepared on, because then I can check it. But if I just, I don't care about it, then,
Yeah. I guess there's just like some things that I have worked on that I haven't been able to get to that space of confidence still, and that's where maybe I'm like even more particularly sensitive. So if it's like, oh yeah, I've been like trying to like figure out how to like do the dishes or something. I was gonna say something with my hair, that's why I touched my hair, but it's like I don't know what to say. I just like I like kind of leave my hair, but like I've been like doing the dishes consistently like this way, and I know it's still like not very efficient. And then somebody's just like gonna come in and be like, oh, you should have been doing it like this, and this would have saved you like hours of your life. So I'm kind of sensitive about that, because like I don't know. It's not even something I'm like that.
Even like with cleaning, like there's like, I remember one time, well, this isn't cleaning technically, but I was like chopping something in front of somebody, and my friend was like, hey, I can show you a better way to do that. It's like, no, I'm just gonna chop. Of course I was chopping it like shit because I know how to chop, but I didn't want him to show me how to do it for some reason. Like, I don't want. Or like, yeah, or certain things that you do weird, and you're like, you don't want someone to come to like, oh, why do you do it? Like, you can do it this way. I hate that. No, just let me do it this way. I know it's done. But like, just for somebody, don't call me out on it, please. Just let me like over here and do it without you watching. Right?
It is something like that where it's like people are gonna think it's weird, and you think it's weird, but you just like you've accepted it.
Yeah, it's like I don't feel like puzzling this and figuring out a better way, right? I just want to get this over with, so please don't talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Can relate. Yeah. Thanks, Caden or Kaiden. Probably Caden. Oh, whoops.
Oh, physically touchy?
Well, that's a good question to ask either way, I guess.
Oops.
Right?
Dang.
Sorry, Kate. I didn't even read the next message.
Oh, he already said it? I didn't even.
He said it right after the first one. I just read.
Okay.
So it wasn't like it came later either.
I didn't scroll up. So yeah, I guess like FESE, it's like feeling, sensing. Am I touchy? I'm not with most people. Like with my wife, I can be, but like I don't think most people want me to be. That's something where like maybe that's like more acceptable for like women to be touching each other, where like men don't really do that. So I'm aligning with like cultural norms. But
it's like a FE female might be more touching, or maybe even touchy's not even a FE
touchy sounds like a weird thing to say, but like
I feel like that has more to do with other things than probably.
Yeah, I feel like I touch when I feel like it's appropriate, which is almost never.
So I try to step it up immediately. So if I meet someone the first time, I usually hug them, which for some people is weird, but it's like, okay, we're setting the baseline at the hug. So, I feel like, I don't know, because like you want to like feel comfortable around someone. And if I just automatically step it up to a hug, then,
Yeah, and that's one of those things where you like, I don't want to control like what that is going to look like in our relationship. So I'm just like, if you want to hug, I'll hug you. If you don't, then I won't. But it's it's really weird when both people are like, what are we gonna do? I've definitely had that.
That's what you're gonna be.
I've definitely had that before. So.
All right. So Victoria has a question. Rob, were you surprised by your type, or did you expect some sort of FESE? It sounds to me like you saw yourself as a more introverted type and wouldn't necessarily have expected extroverted saviors. So I think you kind of touched on this a bit with the ENTP thing. Could you expand a little bit, or do you have more to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought I was OE that I could see. Yeah, and I guess I thought it was NE more traditionally speaking. I didn't really understand the how they were slicing that. I don't think back when I got my type originally. Which I think I get it better now. It was kind of taken aback by it at first. I never really felt like I resonate with NI, so it's just like okay, I must not be on that axis at all. But now I sort of understand it a lot better. But FE, I considered being Savior FE at one point, like any FE, but then it didn't seem like it made sense with some of the other types that I had seen, so I wasn't really considering that too heavily. It just seemed like my TI was more prevalent.
Okay.
And then I put myself out there to get feedback from people, and nobody was seeing that. So.
Oh, really? Wow.
Basically nobody said FE.
So the trial feedback was also not FE, like TI.
Yeah, some people thought FI, they thought Savior Feeler, but I had pretty decisively decided I was not on that axis after watching some of their classes. That was something I felt like I really took away from joining their class, actually seeing that clearly. So the Maisie Williams class in particular, I call back to in my mind is okay, yeah. I'm not doing that. I am not doing that.
Oh yeah, that would be a good one too, because Maisie was kind of seeing herself as more of the FE archetype, right? Where she's talking about her superpower was empathy and these other things, and Dave kind of made a joke about it, and it's you know what I'm really good at? Ask me. Skateboarding. That's what
Yeah, I remember her talking on the Lewis House show, there were 3 truths at the end, the stuff she was talking about, and what felt really personal to her was just I'm not doing that. That's
it's really far off, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Did you have any other classes that you felt, well, hey, thanks Victoria for the question, appreciate it. Did you have any other classes you felt were big that were help? I don't know, that's a hard question. I don't even know what classes I would say, but do you feel there's, other than that one, were there some ones that felt were really helpful in figuring out your type?
I think Daniel Amen and Byron Katie have been helpful for seeing what Demon TI patterns look like. I think they do a good job of they're basically telling people to do the things that are helpful for Demon TI.
Yeah,
I think in a lot of ways, challenge your negative thoughts and see can you really see that is true? There's a video they have with Dr. Phil where he's talking about those those sort of negative truths as well. So it's all these lead FE people that are digging into that side of themselves and sort of seeing that pattern. That's one that I'm oh, okay, that's really helping me see that for myself. So those kind of ones were helpful.
Yeah, I don't know if this goes along with what you're saying exactly. I might be misinterpreting it, but I feel something I've heard from Savior or lead FEs is that if they have negative thoughts, I feel there's a big resistance to that, or they're oh God, what did I just think right then? Mostly sleep last maybe or so. But do you feel you struggle with that as Demon TI? There's certain thoughts that come in your head that you find really reprehensible and hard time dealing with those, or?
Well, I was kind of thinking more of the stuff where I'm sort of devaluing myself, saying that it's not I'm not measuring up in some ways. I'm allowing that to be sort of a false truth.
Oh, okay.
So
it's negative thoughts about yourself,
a lot of them are, yeah.
you're not good at sports, Rob. Like,
I think that's in particular true for masculine TI, but I don't know, maybe not. It can be more difficult to undo those, maybe. And it's like self-sabotaging because you're like getting stuck on those things. Like this is something that's fundamentally true, and I can't undo it. And you've just like proved it to yourself over and over. Like that's something that's really hard to kind of get over. And you need to like unravel that and be like, no, that's really not something that we can hang our hat on and be confident about. Because like I was saying earlier with like the positive things, like I'm saying like, oh, I'm good at math. It's like maybe I'm not actually, but people were like telling me I was for a while, so I like allowed myself to believe it. So, but at least that's like a false confidence type thing, which some people have problems with a little bit. Maybe I do in some areas, but it's a good thing. I don't know. Like, yeah. But
wait, how do you mean the false confidence? Good.
Like if someone's like building you up in an area, but it's not actually true, right?
Oh yeah, totally. That's like, yeah, it's something I'm afraid of too, because I don't want my like head to get too big over something that it shouldn't be getting big.
Right.
Over, right? Yeah, it's like, please mean your don't just say the compliment because I'm struggling with it. Like, please, that's not like helpful. Like, I appreciate it, but yeah, it's not helpful. Yeah,
I have to be aware of that with my website, right? Because like people are like saying like, oh, I love your website, but it's like in comparison to what? There's no other websites that are doing this really. So it's like they like it just because it exists, but is it actually good content? I don't know. But you know, I have to keep it to a standard that I feel confident in. Is really like what it has to be. Like I'll say like, okay, that's like good information, but I still need to like say that it's good in my view. Is kind of that balance there that I need to sort of bring to other areas of my life.
Yeah,
as well. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's hard to gauge your own work, I feel like, and it's easy to devalue it because it's like kind of the safe option, right? Other than like being delusional about it, and it's just like, can you really ever know if your stuff is like objectively good, or is there like an objectively good quality? It's like, well, if the tribe says it a bunch of times, then I guess it's good. But it's like, how many times though? 5 times? Maybe if it were 10 times, 10 times. I feel more confident with 20 times, right? Like you're always going to find a way to like say that whatever. And it's like, I wish like, cause I can relate to that a lot. I wish like we could just stop trying to value it at all, right? Like I'm going to make it the best I can. And whether it's good or not, like who gives a shit, you know, like somebody's going to like it, you know, right? Like, but like, man, that is not easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recently watched this Savannah Brown video that she came out with, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she's like what'd you say?
I am not familiar with her. No.
Okay. She was typed by Dave and Shan at some point as a double feminine ESTP.
Okay.
And she was talking about like, she's a poet and she does a lot of these videos on her YouTube channel where she's like processing things. And it's like really interesting to see like how she's trying to understand like what it means to be like someone in the public eye and like putting out work there and trying to be creative. You know, she's like really sort of walking that line of like connecting and not. So one of her videos really recently connected with me. Like, yeah, just this idea of like, how do I know like I'm putting something out there that isn't like tainted by other people? It's like I just want to create something that other people think is cool.
Yeah.
But I also need to like make money and she's trying to do that as a career, so it's even trickier.
It's a tightrope. Yeah.
Because you want to be appealing, but you also want to do something that like is meaningful to you. So yeah, that balance is tough, even for observers.
Totally. Like any art form, that's like the main struggle, right? Or at least when you make money off of it, it's like, do I do what works or do I do like what I want to do? And how can I make it to where I can do what I want to do, but it's still like appealing? Maybe like whatever your craft is, this is maybe the IP delusion, but like you can be so good at it that even if you're doing things really different than everyone else, there's going to be people that still like it, and you're still going to have like a following. I feel like you see that in music a lot, where you have these like kind of indie musicians, or musicians that kind of have like genre bending sort of songs and stuff like that. It's like they're going like outside of what's commonly listened to in music, but they're so fucking good at music that they still have a giant following, and they still manage to like get that, which is like, yeah. And but then even like with that mindset, it's still, you're still in the trap of like, is my stuff good enough? And like, is it that it's bad, or is it that people have other preferences, right? Like that, it's just a clusterfuck, like making stuff and being creative. God.
Yeah, and it's just a constant thing you're doing. It's not ever like something that you just solve, right? So.
Yeah, totally. Another window closure. Give me a sec. It's getting too bright in here, man. It's killing me. Okay.
Yeah. Stupid sun.
Trying to get out of my eyes, man. So annoying.
But yeah, I think that is a trap that we can fall into with type stuff, or type stuff, where we are trying to like solve this problem, where it's just like an endless thing, right? It's an endless balancing it.
It's a problem as long as you try to solve it, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Because like we talk about like the idea of being alpha state, and it's like, is that really like a state, or is it like a constant process that you're managing, right? You have to do both. You can't just like do your demons and have it be done. So
yeah, the elusive alpha state. I don't know if anyone completely understands what that is. I guess you're just doing all four functions to some degree, or you're a millionaire. Maybe that just makes you an alpha. I'm not really sure, but like, you know. So you had a couple of other questions that I missed on here. One from Jana. Wait, we didn't do one for. Yeah, we did. Okay. Do you want to say more than you do with Blast Last? How do you decide what to blast and what not to? How does it feel if you want to blast something, but you don't? It's coming from a blaster perspective, I feel like, right? Like, you do want to blast, right? Do you feel like you can, or do you feel like you? Or maybe I'm not reading it right. But.
Do I want to say more than I do? It's kind of confusing to me. Is that like?
It's like, do you have more to say, or do you feel like you should have said more, or do you like? Yeah, it could be interpreted differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's that abundance of consume, like wanting to make sure you got it right before you share thing. Is like the big pattern there. I think that's like the best way to sum up being sort of double activated on consume and single, or having blast last. You really want to feel like you understand something before you're like giving information to the tribe that could like maybe steer them in the wrong direction. You just don't feel comfortable doing that. You're just like not doing that constantly. So it feels like a big no-no unless you've really thought it through. So that's something that I feel like is difficult with that. How do I decide? It's really like, what have I been able to give that time to share? Like, what do I actually think is going to be consistently valuable for people? So actually trying to see those underlying patterns and feel confident enough in them to think that it's going to provide some value for someone to share that. So yeah, it's really difficult. I feel like I have a lot of thoughts swimming in my head, and like actually narrowing down to like, oh, this is like one that, or this is like something that connects them and is valuable. It's just like so elusive. It's like everything's just kind of floating around.
Yeah. Finding the common denominator between all that, and like forming like the concept based on all that stuff is floating around. You're like grabbing it, like this, put it together. No, this doesn't work. This. And then you're trying to explain it at the same time, and you're like, okay, I feel like I've been talking for 10 minutes. I haven't said anything. Wait, do you run into that? Do you feel like you just keep going and going and going, and it doesn't, like, you don't really get your message out? Or do you feel like you just say a few things and you're like, that really wasn't the whole thing?
I mean, sometimes I feel like I bury my point in just like talking too much about other stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
it's like I don't know. I feel like I've done it in this interview where you like ask me a question and I kind of like, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of this other thing I was thinking about. So I'm just gonna like pull that in. But then it's like, oh, what was the other thing? Did I actually answer that question? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I think it's been good so far. I don't feel like there's any questions you didn't answer. But yeah, you did like channel change a bit, which I think we both do. But like, I think that's good.
Yeah, it's like did I hit the
right? Like this is a convo, so yeah.
It's not like I don't feel like I'm confident that I'm hitting the point directly, like really answering exactly what they're asking. So
I have a friend that does that actually. Like he'll explain something and it made sense the first time, but then he'll explain it again, slightly different, not really that different. And he'll do it again and again. Like, no, it's not. The first time was clear. I know you didn't think you were clear, but actually,
yeah,
it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can definitely do that. Just trying to refine it. I shoot once and it's like, oh, that was not quite right, and I'll just try again, kind of thing. So yeah, it ends up just being a bunch of information, but kind of scattered over the target.
It's like, yeah, I hope you saw the NI in that because I don't know if that was like,
that's just like OE speech patterns. It seems like
totally.
It's kind of like, oh, this is like in that area. I don't want to narrow it down because OE you gotta have it all. But yeah. And how does it feel if you want to blast something but you don't? Just kind of feeling like, is this right? Like, am I aiming correctly here? And yeah, it's often that feeling of being like, oh, I missed my moment because I'm like trying to figure out or trying to aim it.
Oh yeah, totally. Or like, do you ever, especially I feel like this happens on the Discord a lot where somebody will be talking and then they'll make a point and you're like, oh, I have something to say about that. And then they'll move on to their next point or their next thing. And then like, I never get to like actually talk because they keep like shifting what they're saying. And then it's just like, okay, I'm just going to go on mute for a while.
Yeah, I definitely have that happen, especially when there's more people in the room.
It
can be hard to like, because you want to pay attention to what people are saying and really trying to understand it, but then you also like need to narrow down and like, oh, I have this interesting point to say that builds on that. But if it comes, just builds up too slowly, and the conversation moves. Especially with voice chat only, it's like awkward for the pauses to be too long sometimes. So people just kind of go.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. Or sometimes they'll jump in like because they know somebody else is going to jump in, so they jump in really quick, and then the other persons are still talking. Like it's because it was like a 1 second pause or something.
Yeah,
I can see that too sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely messy, but.
We got one for Prem. Hey, Prem. Oh, okay. You might have been referring to something earlier in the convo. Do you feel the theory is to make sense of the NISC observation that you? I think he's referring. Okay, I think he's referring to something we talked about with your blog. What did we talk about? Glass lizards. And when was this? 4:50. This was okay. We were well into the broadcast at this point. Prem, if you're there. Oh wait, here we go. Theory. Wait. Do you feel the theory is to make sense of the? So like, you feel like your TI is based on your NISC observations? Is that what you meant, Prem?
I'm not sure which theory we're talking about, but
like he means your TI, like just in general. I think like the TI stuff that you come up with. Does that draw from your NISC? Maybe that's not right either. Maybe Prem is around still.
Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding where we're going with this.
We can, maybe he's still listening, and maybe he can clarify a bit. So yeah. Hi, Sonny. Please don't be late again. Okay, we've been expecting you for I don't know how long. That's fine.
Sonny has a question there too.
Those glass lizard articles are great. See, Rob, you're not so bad. Look what Lauren said. You're like immediately dismissing it, like, oh, she's just being nice, man.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a void for the glass lizard stuff because that hasn't really been talked about too much. But
it gets mentioned here or there, but like, yeah, there's not like a definitive guide. Well, until now with your website, but yeah,
it's pretty high level. But
Yeah. So another one from Jenna. With your first function FE in the blast last, making it single activated, do you think it waters down your FE?
So, I mean, as I was talking about earlier with the sort of like more traditional descriptions, they kind of clump the blast and the play together in descriptions of it. With OP, they try and like really cut things down and be like, okay, feeling is this, DE is this, so FE is just DE plus feeling, right? And they don't like overcomplicate it by like adding too many descriptions of behaviors into it. So that allows us to have types like myself. So if you think of it in that way, and whether it waters it down, I guess I'm like not doing that side of it as much. I'm not directing the tribe in a way that is going to produce value in the long term as much. So yeah, I'm not doing that guiding aspect and like really like trying to pool and unify people together on a single OI. That's just not something I'm doing. So
and it feels kind of like, does that feel manipulative to you? Like putting everyone in the same like OI thing? It almost feels like very like,
I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah.
It's a different way to connect. It just feels, it feels like more forceful because it's like, oh, you're choosing this thing rather than like trying to pick up in the moment. So it gives us different strengths. I think my manager at work is actually FE SI, and he's like really good at like pulling us into like what needs to be like laid out for our work. So when he's not there, like that void is definitely missing. So I'm trying to like pick up from what he's doing and understand that a little bit better. But I'm not always like leading the meeting. Like when he's in the meetings, he's like leading them and doing a good job doing that. And I try and like emulate that when I am leading, but when I'm not, I'm just kind of like trying to figure out what the other person's doing and contribute it in the ways that I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and step up when it's like, okay, this is a responsibility that's been placed on you, but I'm really not like taking the initiative and doing it. So in that way, I guess it kind of can water it down, and it's more of a dance than, I don't know what the other thing would be, but I'm very much just kind of interpreting what's going on.
Yeah, it's more of a you're dancing more than being like a battering ram, I guess.
It's an improvised dance rather than a like
like a line dance or something.
Choreographed dance. Yeah, choreograph. That's a good word.
Yeah, choreographed. So. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, another.
Got to the analogy eventually.
We got there. Oh, how are you on time? I think it's almost at an hour and a half. Just wanted to check.
I mean, I could do another question.
Okay, cool. I had some so I had some I guess a quick question on kind of what you're doing for like growth, if you have some stuff for that.
What am I doing?
Yeah, like what are you doing to work on your TI, I guess? Or your blast or whatever.
Okay, so one sort of problem in my life that I'm sort of dealing with right now is understanding kind of where I want to go with my career. And I feel like this is like a choice I'm making for myself, and it involves the future, and these are like my demons, right? Just like I've kind of allowed myself to sort of go with the flow through most of my life, and I sort of have the skills that I have, and I don't know if they're necessarily what other people are valuing, so that kind of scares me.
Like the adaptability, though, is kind of a skill in itself, though, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And trying to sort of understand where my skills are and sort of own it, I think is sort of where I'm trying to grow right now as much as possible. Like accepting like I'm good here, I'm not here. If I'm not good here, then I can work on it, right? It's not like I'm stuck with that as being something that I'm bad at. So I think that is something I'm working to overcome. in terms of just being like, this is okay. I'm struggling with this now, but I can like take the time and figure it out. Because a lot of it's just like I want to like go and play and like produce value and like be valued and connect with people and all of this. I just want to like go and make it happen. But sometimes you need to slow down and like figure out where you're going and like actually work backwards from, okay, you want the skill. It's going to take some work. You want to commit to that skill. And that's the stuff that's like really difficult for me. And sort of narrowing down and deciding like, these are the things I'm going to work towards. Because a lot of this stuff I'm just kind of like building up because, it seems like it connects in the moment. So trying to allow myself to make those decisions for myself in the future and be like, this is what I'm going to work towards is difficult. So I've been playing with some different things in those areas, trying to understand where I'm going.
Might help, I guess. Does it help to have double masculine sleep for that? I feel like that's kind of like it should be down there somewhere, right? Like if that's what you have.
So where it's difficult is just like I see that once I lock into something, like I'm locked in, but I'm like not allowing myself to lock in. And
gotcha.
understanding exactly why is kind of confusing.
But it's like you want to be sure, right? Like you don't want to lock in on just anything.
I mean, if you lock in on one thing, you're automatically sort of saying like, I can't do these other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that,
yeah,
right?
That can be scary, right? Yeah, totally.
Like if I say I'm going to start learning guitar, which this isn't my guitar, I don't know how to play this, but that's going to take a lot of time.
But it appears as though you play guitar, which is all that matters.
I mean, if I decide I'm going to do that, I like have to really commit, and it's like I'm not going to have as much time to do stuff with OPS, or like I'm not going to have as much time to work on programming skills or other things I want to create. So, like, is that the thing I want to do? Yeah. So I find myself doing a lot of things that are like less committal, and then maybe they're less rewarding as well. So that's.
So it's like you got one side of the board. You might not know where to aim the gun, but at least like like you can like when you do pull the trigger, like it's like that part. I feel like it's the opposite struggle. I guess a lot of people they can know where to go, but then they don't lock into it, and they end up like whatever. You know what I mean? Which is like more of a typical OE thing. I feel like like you just kind of I locked in onto this. I don't want to lock into it anymore. I'm just gonna do this or do that. With you, it seems like it's kind of the opposite. We're like, what about this? Nah, this, 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 nah. But when you find that, then you're pretty gung ho, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's like I see a lot of stuff that's like valuable and things I could be doing and things that like are of interest to me, but is it like of interest enough to be like a career path or something I'm going to like really commit myself to? It's like that kind of scares me to like make that choice for myself. It's like no one told me I'm good at this. Why should I be doing it? Like that kind of stuff is like the thing that kind of plagues me when I try and narrow down.
I think the cool thing, okay, so about to give some like TI here, but I feel like the nice thing with your ability to adapt and the fact that you've worn so many hats, you have like a lot of different meta skills and a pretty diverse range of things that you can do. Maybe you're not a master of anything, but you have like a full like sort of palette there. So I feel like actually you could kind of create your own path that kind of suits who you are as a person. Like you don't have to be a guitar player. You don't have to be a programmer. You can actually combine all of these hats together and make a unique sort of broad path, right? Like I feel like that you're kind of in a good spot to do that. I feel like, you know what I mean? Since you've been like not really a specialist this whole time, you've been like dabbling in everything. So if you were to combine these things that relate to each other, you could really build something unique that maybe isn't a traditional career path, or maybe something somebody hasn't really thought of to even do, and you could have a completely whole niche to yourself, I would think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that could be kind of scary in itself to like
totally
something that doesn't exist, or whatever.
Scary, but like if you figured it out though, like how fucking cool is that? You have like a completely tailor-fitted career to you, and it's like I feel like that would be exactly what you wanted, and you'd be the best at it because it's all about basically your attributes and your skill set. It wouldn't be like you're forcing yourself into a box. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've played around with like those sorts of ideas as well. It's like these are the things that interest me. They're kind of like scattered. How do they unify?
Yeah.
And it's like I need to make money some way. Kind of thing. Like I want to have a family and support them and all that stuff. So there's a lot going into that feels like very overwhelming. But trying to say like, okay, I need to figure this out. Maybe that's like the unifying thing. Like this, okay, this is me. These are the things I'm interested in. How does this unify? And allowing it to be that big and broad and commit to it. So
it can be done. I think
feels very overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. Well, you made it this far. Seem to be doing pretty well at the moment. So I have confidence that you'll figure something out and things will work out for you. And you're a smart dude and you're a nice guy and people like you and you seem like you have a lot going for yourself. So I'm sure eventually you get something cool. It might take a really long time, but you got time. Yeah. I mean, what if you did it in 30 years, then you'd still have it, right? You got a lot of time left. You could do anything in 30 years, right? Probably do anything in 10 years. 5 years, you could probably do most things, right? So I mean, I don't know. At least for me, maybe it's a masculine sensory thing, but I feel like I'm always out of time. Like I feel like and then I think about it, like no, actually, I don't need to stress about this. I got years and years and years. Why don't I just take this bit by bit and kind of enjoy the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that like a lot with the SE. Just like, how can I like make an impact now? It's like I can't.
Yeah.
So I can't do this as well. It's like allowing myself to sort of see like how much time things take and sort of accepting that has been an interesting thing. And like this interview had stuff about like how I was when I was younger and things like that. So it's kind of getting to think about my past more. And I think that is something that I don't maybe do enough. You don't really think of NI as like looking to the past, but it definitely should be and is in terms of like projecting into the future. It's like, okay, these are the things that are constant. Like I can see these patterns over and over playing out in my past, and they will continue to play out in the future, right? So at least probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
throw in the disclaimer.
It's like an SE thing to not go into the past too much. I don't really ever think of the past. Like, that's in the past. That was another life. I don't know anything about that. Well, sorry, Rob. I feel like I've kept you a bit too long. I think you're needing to go a few minutes ago. So we'll go ahead and end it here. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Sorry we didn't get to all your questions. But yeah, so we're on a bit of a time limit here at the moment. But thank you
on Discord. I said hit me up on Discord if you have questions.
Yeah, hit Rob up on Discord, and he can help you out with that. So, all right, everyone, thanks for watching. We'll see you here next time for Ian. Well, if we ever schedule the damn thing, we're trying to schedule this one for 2 months. Potentially Ian. We'll see what happens for the next
observer me.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording. Take it easy, y'all, and see you next time. Bye.